I just want to copy the link.
Tell her I need to hear now. Where is it, Eddie? Where is it, Eddie?
YouTube.
Where is the link?
The link I'll send you now.
To my WhatsApp. What we are saying here is already going.
But this is not, they are not yet on. It's just
You are HCL. You wanted to devote the ministry to this conference. So it is some aspects of evaluation and also the methodology pieces. Yes. Now, yes, now. It's called
Tate, oh, is it you? How are you? Good.
Oh, oh, the place is it's Zoom, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we will put. It's not people are coming.
They are coming, eh?
They're coming.
Yes.
The place people.
They're coming. But that's what's what.
Huh?
What I mean is
I'm just trying to send you the link so that the one that cannot come
Oh,
can view it on the YouTube.
okay. Oh, that's good. This year and last year, you have been busy. You can't even go to the bathroom with this Zoom. Oh, yes. And so this one is. Oh,
so they're coming.
we are coming out and what we are saying that you can't go to the.
No, but they still they are not yet on.
That's the area best practice in the what? But that's
Give me the link,
Yeah.
You didn't know. It's true.
I just look through when I see some land issues, then I ask Martin to translate.
You're fine. That's the colleagues from NBC, are they here or?
They said they are not away.
Just wait for them. Give them a few minutes.
Oh, they're here.
For
No,
hours.
they're not here. Sorry, we are just waiting for the NBC to come. They are on their way. Oh. We'll give them another 5 minutes or so. Let's find out where they are and how long it will take. Maybe they should find us line.
We are not using the way now, yeah.
How long will it take?
Probably less than 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes. They've already left. They're in Robert.
But we were very explicit in our invitation, isn't it?
Yes, very, very explicit. Everybody came here. Okay, right?
Punctuality is a virtue. Huh?
Honorable Minister, members of the media, my name is Ndiakuti Nkwamata. I'm a Deputy Executive Director in the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform. Thank you, members of the media, for responding to our invitation. This media conference is aiming at clarifying media articles on daily newspapers regarding the acquisition of 2 farms by the state. Therefore, it is my honor and privilege to call Honorable Carl Helmans Gustav SCHLETTWEIN to make his statement. Honorable Minister.
Comrade Jacobi Nkwamata, the Deputy Executive Director of the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, members of the media, both print and electronic, ladies and gentlemen, staff members, thank you for being here. I'm really grateful for your attendance at this media briefing. We wish to share with you and through you with the general public aspects relating to allegations and speculations contained in articles published in daily newspapers recently in connection with 2 farms acquired by the state that belonged to a close corporation in which the Right Honorable Prime Minister and the husband are the shareholders. The articles deal with a farm acquisition that the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Rural and Land Reform concluded recently and allege preferential treatment accorded to the Prime Minister and her husband. The articles rehearsed parts of the questions Honorable Henny Seibert put to the Minister of Agriculture, Water, Rural and Land Reform in the National Assembly. I want to make it clear that obviously I shall answer these questions fully and comprehensively once given the opportunity in the National Assembly. However, the allegations and the factual basis on which these questions are resting are questionable and in some cases just untrue. I therefore saw the need to call for this media briefing to afford the public a more accurate and truthful picture. Secondly, the matter attracted wide media attention, and it involves a very senior member of government, namely the Right Honorable Prime Minister. And it is therefore in the public interest to address the matter soonest. The farm Dubip, number 1149, measuring 5,008.45 hectares, and portion 1 of farm Goa, number 160, called Achenam, and measuring 2,750.2 hectares, are situated in the registration division B in the Otsujojupa region and were legally owned and held under deed of title number T760/2012. They were acquired by Seize the Moment Investment 56 CC from the previous owner, who is a privileged or advantaged Namibian, and were transferred to the CC on the 28th of February 2012. Seize the Moment Investment 56 CC has two shareholders, namely Mr. Onesimus Tobias Amadila, who owns 50%, and Dr. Sara Nanjila Kugelba Amadila, who owns the other 50%. These farms were therefore private properties of Seize the Moment Investment 56 and not the state's. It was not state land. The two farms were not acquired by Seize the Moment Investment 56 from the state. That's the first inaccuracy that was in the articles, that it was state land that was acquired. It was not. Subsequently, however, the same two farms were offered in 2020 by Seize the Moment Investments to the government as per Section 17 of the Agricultural Land Reform Act, that's the commercial one, Act number 6 of 1995. And that was done on the 20th of January 2020. The Act makes provision that every farm must be offered first to the state to exercise the state's first right of refusal to acquire the farm. The Ministry, following the recommendations of the Land Reform Advisory Commission, assessed the farms and found them suitable for a settlement. So it is not a matter of choice that owners of farms have when they trade with their properties, with their real estate. Farmland must be offered to the state. The farms were valued, and upon the recommendation of the Land Reform Advisory Commission, a counter offer was made to Seize Investment, to the Seize the Moment Investment 56 CC. After price negotiating meetings, as provided for in the Agricultural Commercial Land Reform Act, the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform made a final counter offer of $1,713 per hectare for farm Duvip, that is number 1149, and for the portion of farm Goab, called Achanap, the final offer was $2,100 per hectare, which were accepted by the owners as the true market value of the subject properties. The farms were subsequently transferred to the state on the 8th of December 2020, after having been acquired at a total purchase price of $8,624,377 for farm Duvip, that's number 1149, and $5,812,371 $0.72 for portion 1 of farm Goab, that is now called Achanap. The total amount paid for both properties amounted to $14,436,748.70. The owners did not receive any valuation preference during the valuation of these properties as alleged. The market value of these farms was determined through a sales comparison approach to determine the market value of the farms. This process is currently supported by the legislation as well as the Constitution of the Republic of Namibia. It must be noted that farm prices have generally doubled during the past 10 years. That is just before COVID hit us. They've come down now, but at the time of the transaction, land prices were still peaking. To illustrate the point, I Googled myproperty.na or myproperty.com.na for farms for sale currently. And I found, for instance, farm for sale in Ichu, 7,140 hectare, 10,500,000. That would be a hectare price of 1,470.59 cents. Farm for sale in Utavi, 3,189 hectare, 15 million. That's an hectare price of 4,703.67 dollars per hectare. A farm sold in Ogahania, 15 million. And it had an hectare size of 1,692 hectare, bringing the hectare price to $8,865 per hectare. Those are current prices after the peak a year ago. It is further worth mentioning that out of the 13 farms selected for market value, that is farms that were valued and sold during the same period, 2 farms were used to determine the market value of farm Duvit, number 1149. And in registration division B, due to their close proximity to the farm and the fact that these farms were recently sold in relation to the time of the sale of the farms in question. The farms used for comparison were sold at $1,746.96 a hectare. First farm, second farm, 1,600 hectare. In the case of portion 1 of farm Guap, called Achenap, 3 farms out of the 13 were selected for market value determination. These farms were sold at $2,292.77 per hectare and $2,000.43 per hectare, and thirdly, $2,702 per hectare. During the period 2021, the ministry purchased 10 farms, and I have attached a list with the respective details to my statement. The hectare prices varied from 3,050 to 1,713 per hectare. And it is important to note that by comparison, farm Duvip, the one bought from Seize the Moment 56 cc, in fact attracted the lowest per hectare price, that of 1,730. While the farm Achenap came in as the 6th lowest at 2,100. It is factually incorrect to state that Dr. Sarah Mandila Kugelba-Amadila, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Namibia, was at any point resettled, applied for resettlement, nor did she benefit under any provision of the National Resettlement Program. The Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform has verified through its database that the farms in question were privately purchased under normal commercial scheme loans, which are administered by the Agricultural Bank of Namibia. And bonds were indeed registered over the subject farms. Equally, it is factually incorrect to state that state land was used as part of collateral for any part of these loans. The farms that were used as collateral belonged to Seize the Moment Investment 56cc and held under deed of title number T 760/2012. They were privately owned at the time of the transaction. In conclusion, I must say that I'm worried when media reports peddle falsehood in an effort to discredit public institutions. The articles allege preferential treatment accorded by the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform to Seize the Moment 56cc, owned by the Right Honorable Prime Minister and her husband, which is just false and untrue. We could show that all processes acquiring and disposing of the two different properties, Farm Dibwip and Farm Achenau, were conducted at reasonable and comparable market prices and in terms of the applicable law. Relevant documents such as deeds were issued, and they are public documents. They are available for authentication. I therefore urge you to put the record straight by reporting factually and truthfully. The action or crime of making false spoken statements, damaging a person's reputation, is harmful to the people involved. It is unjustly undermining the integrity of public institutions. In fact, it can be a crime in itself. If the intent is to fight corruption, good and well, you have my full support. But do it with authenticated facts. Untruthful reporting, like in these cases, in these articles, harms the fight against corruption. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for your statement. I now open the floor for questions. Kindly raise your hand, identify yourself and the institution, media house you are representing. The floor is now open for questions.
So, have you attached this list? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Adeus from the Lady Newspaper. I have one question or two questions perhaps. It was alleged that certain allegations are stated during the end of last year, the finance I used a progress report in the resolutions and the among those among the updates in that report was a statement that says that the government has a government about 5 pounds anymore because there was no money, and in that the government only consider 5 pounds they were saving. So I just wanted to understand where did the government issue money to that, and the land not only that for the Prime Minister, but 10,000. That's mentioned.
Yeah, well, I've given you the list. We bought 10 farms with varying prices. The total amount that we spent was $88,135,622.60. And I think it came about because we work in different financial years. This period, when we acquired the relevant farms, falls within the period of 2020-2021. The report that you are referring to was forward-looking and looked into future budget reallocations to land acquisitions. And there we have to recognize that we have lost fiscal space, and therefore the allocations for land acquisitions will be limited.
Okay, but now based on that, is the government's program for settlement still ongoing? How many farms are we expecting to be settled? And how many farms are currently on the books of the ministry that are not defined? And just on the issue of the willing buyer, willing seller, we are aware, or we know that during 2018, there was a resolution taken to abolish the willing buyer, willing seller program, and that the ministry for the government must come up with a plan of acquiring them. What is the ministry's what has the ministry done in that regard? And maybe if there's any alternative policy that the ministry is developing.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, the first question is, yes, the land reform program is going ahead. Now, I again have to inform, and I thought it is common knowledge by now, we have two sources of money from which we purchase farm. One is land tax that is accumulated in a specific fund, the land acquisition fund, and the second source is the budgetary allocation that we get over the top of that tax income that we have. So in as much as the budgetary allocations may become smaller, there will always be some resources available for some farm purchases and acquisitions so that we do not stop the program as a whole. We have also decided that over and above purchasing and acquiring farms, we must also give attention to rehabilitating and maintaining acquired farms as we are having them, so that they can be brought back to productivity in cases where they have faulty infrastructure like boreholes also that takes them out. So we have two main objectives to which we allocate resources: acquisition and resettlement, yes, but also rehabilitation and maintenance of already acquired farms. Now on the second questions, whether we proceed with the willing buyer, willing seller process, I think we reported under the report on the second land conference resolutions that the resolution was taken to abolish the willing buyer, willing seller principle. But that resolution is under the current legal framework unimplementable. There are legal impediments, there are constitutional impediments. That is the advice that we got that makes it currently impossible to implement the abolishment of the willing buyer, willing seller program. It needs significant amendments of the current legal framework, including the Constitution. So for now, that resolution remains stayed because of the legal impediment that we have with it.
But what is the ministry doing in terms of maybe revamping or amending the legal instrument?
Well, we are in consultations with the Attorney General, with the Ministry of Justice, with the whole cabinet, of whether we should, in fact, insist on implementing the resolution, or whether we can find a way that brings about effective and meaningful land reform without having unintended consequences with regard to the protection of property rights, which de facto is the key legal impediment here, the protection of property rights.
Okay, that resolution in the land conference was taken in the view of.
Sorry, I don't want to have a dialogue.
Yeah,
I think there are other people
that.
that.
Just one last question. The resolution was taken in the view of reducing the current pricing of the farming, which has been alleged that the government is buying farms from bigger prices because people can just put up their prices and keep selling the. So, what is the government basically doing, or the ministry doing in that regard, to make sure that you don't buy or you use the price range of farms that you buy from individuals?
Yeah, as I indicated in my statement, land prices have doubled de facto in the last 10 years. That's some price escalation that is very, very high. And you are right, it limited our ability to acquire farms. We can only acquire now half the amount of farms than we could 10 years ago. So we are looking at the evaluation process that we are engaging in to evaluate farms. We are witnessing now that farm prices are actually coming down because of an oversupply and a limited ability to acquire farms. So it moves away from a seller's market to a buyer's market. So we on the one hand evaluate possibilities to utilize interventions that would have an effect on reduced prices. But on the other hand, we have also got consequences in the market forces, and we can influence the price by supply and demand equilibriums, and that is for us the preferred way. And we are saying that because of the fact that real estate, of which farms are a significant component, are a very important financial asset in which many more people other than farmers have invested. So if you drastically reduce real estate value in an economy, there may be very severe unintended consequences to the banking sector, to the individual saver, to the financial stability as a whole. And in our economy, real estate forms a very, very important component of the banking activities. 57% of banking activities are through mortgages. So one must be very careful when you chase an objective of reducing real estate price, and with that create severe unintended financial pressures on another side. So we are seized with that resolution, and we are looking forward to see how we can balance it, because the overall objective of a meaningful land reform remains one of the high priority political objectives that we have.
Honourable Minister, many farmers want to sell their farms, but they were told that there was no money. And like you also said earlier, that you don't have the money, that you're struggling with some of the prices that are put up. So there's a feeling that these two farms jumped the queue. Can you please comment on that? Then there's also Agribank is currently repossessing farms to sell them at below 75% of the value that it was bought for initially. We are also aware that government had directed Agribank not to allow that because it defeats the purpose of land redistribution. What is your take on that? But I'm hoping that you will indulge me with an off-the-topic question here. Agribank just have requested for funding from government, and in the absence of this funding, how are they going to carry out the mandate? Thank you.
Okay, you were very fast, so you must help me to recapture them. I'll start with the first one, and that's the allegation that this farm jumped the queue.
Yes.
Well, I can tell you it did not. The farm was offered in January 2020 to us. Normal turnaround farm between offering and purchasing is around 6 months. This one took 8 months. So others were actually coming in much later than this one when we had to decide within that financial envelope which farms we buy. The reason why we bought those farms is they are in prime farming area. They are in the north on the border between Grootfontein and Tsumeb, therefore falling just into the Jupa region. That's where the rainfall is high, that's where the good soils are, that's where prime farmland is. And that is why our advisory commission found them, these two farms, suitable for resettlement. That was the reason, not anything else. What was your second question?
The second question was on Agribank repossessing farms, which are selling at 75% below the value that farms were usually bought for. And you directed that they do not, that Agribank do not allow that, so it defeats the purpose of redistributing. Can you comment on that?
Yes, I believe that it is proper for a bank like Agribank to make sure that defaulting loans are either stopped, and then they must see what they do with the asset. But we prefer an option where a person who has acquired a loan to purchase a farm under the affirmative action loan scheme is not taken out of circulation, but that the loan is rather rescheduled, so as not to kill the farming operation, but to keep that affirmative action candidate who got a farm in terms of the land distribution and land reform program of the government in place. We must recall that 2019 was the severest drought in 100 years. Our whole cattle herd, the national cattle herd, half. We lost half of our cattle. Now you can imagine that a startup farmer, like an affirmative action farmer, who has the burden of paying off a loan but lost half of his cattle, it must bring about financial pressure. Now, our public financial institutions, in my opinion, are the ones that were brought into life to help these farmers instead of killing them by auctioning off the farm. So, and that was the reason why we said they should rather consider scheduling instead of auctioning off. There are probably some cases that are kind of hopeless cases where the rescheduling will not be possible to maintain the financial viability of the bank itself. And that is still an option, but it should not be the first line of defense. It should be the last recourse.
And the last question on agriculture, the fact that they have requested for more funding, and I think the absence of funding is not there. How should they carry out their own?
Agribusiness is a commercial entity that is also under public enterprise. It's not agriculture anymore. And we had to take a decision whether we want to divert money that we have budgeted, not for agribusiness, but for inputs on the green schemes for production purposes, whether we want to divert that money into a failing SOE that cannot pay salaries. Our decision was rather to help the small-scale farmers and the green schemes with production inputs.
Thank you very much. In the absence of any further questions, I thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and I thank you, media houses, for being here. We apologize for starting late, but you know why. We have to wait for all of you to be here. The Minister was on time. Thank you very much, and we'll keep in touch.
Yes, I also want to thank you. It's Friday. I know journalists, Friday is their Sunday, so I hope I have not spoiled it.
And I hope you will be able to take a call on Sunday morning.
Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is it possible for you to answer, or is it